It seems like there's more competing for our attention today than ever before. And that's a big problem because according to Sam Harris, lasting happiness can only be found in one place, the present moment.
The punchline of life really is that you can't become happy. You can only be happy.
You might know Sam Harris from his popular podcast, Making Sense, his meditation app, Waking Up, or you might remember him from his appearance in my documentary, Minimalism. He's an author and neuroscientist, and he sat down with me for my first post-COVID interview. In this interview, I asked Sam about topics covering minimalism, happiness, and how meditation can change your life. So back in 2014, I had the chance to interview you with my friend Josh, who was my co-producer. We were in an empty, echo-filled room, and we had a chance to talk about minimalism. And I don't know if at the time you were super familiar with the movement, like the people that were living minimalist lifestyles.
No, this was a classic example of actually not fully understanding the film you were being interviewed for. So you were just asking me questions and I was answering them, but I did not have a clear concept of what I was going to be embedded in, which was fine. It's actually, and people love that film, and I often get recognized for being in that film. So obviously many people have watched it. So congratulations there. But yeah, I was kind of an innocent bystander to that interview.
Well, thanks for believing in it, because it was certainly an indie doc. We had no expectations of anybody really seeing it, but you definitely gave us quite a bit of credibility, and also it was a part in the film where we had a lot of personal perspectives, experiences with it, and we wanted to talk with a neuroscientist, an expert, somebody who could really talk about culture and how it's shaped us. But I am really interested in learning about your view of minimalism now, after having seen the film, after seeing more and more people talk about minimalism as a practice to help combat unchecked consumption. I'm curious how you view it now, if you think it's a useful tool for people to be more mindful with what they're consuming.
I think it's very useful to clearly understand the mirage-like quality of so many of the things we seek in our search for happiness, right? So we have this idea of something we want, and we move toward that goal. I mean, it could be some kind of life goal, it could be a career goal, or it could be just the sheer pleasure of owning something, right? So I mean, this falls into the minimalist framework, right? So you have this idea that you need a new house, right? Or you need a new car, or you have you want to publish a book, whatever it is that is on the horizon of your life. It has not yet been actualized. You don't yet have union with that object, and you begin to tell yourself a story of how good life will be once you can get there. Once you own this thing, once you're in that relationship, once you have reached this landmark. And the truth is, you are invariably, if not just starkly disappointed by how much that does not scratch the itch you were hoping to scratch. You're confronted by the fact that the half-life of the experience is very, very short. So it may feel great to win an Oscar or whatever the thing is, but how long does it feel great for, right? How long can you milk that, extract mental pleasure from that experience? It's not long at all, right? And then as you become sensitive to what's actually happening there, it's like you have this experience. There, on some level, there's no there, right? I mean, it really is just this cascade of sights and sounds and sensations and thoughts, as is always the case. And then after a few moments, you are telling yourself the story of what just happened, right? You're now thinking about the past. I mean, just imagine you've delivered your Oscar acceptance speech, and you're being whisked off stage by some pretty woman who's a head taller than you are, and now you're backstage getting peppered with questions about what you're going to do next, or how happy you are to have won this thing. And it's already fallen away into the past, right? You're now telling yourself that now you're thinking, oh, I hope I hope the speech came out well. You're like, I'm now waiting to get home to find out, how, or get back to my seat to find out what my wife thought about the speech. What's like, there's still the anxiety isn't gone, right? You still have further reasons to be uncertain about where you stand in the world, and insofar as this thing can really land in your life and upgrade your life, it is continually a story of you telling yourself a story, right? You're not thinking about the past. And so it's appropriate to be minimalist with respect to one's expectations, that anything that you can go out there and get is really going to equip you to be happy. Right, and I think the punchline of life really is that you can't become happy; you can only be happy, right? And our efforts to become happy are predicated on the following logic: if we can change our lives in certain ways, if we can only bank certain experiences, or arrange the furniture on the deck chairs on the Titanic just so, we will discover a good enough reason then to fully relax into the present and find that the present is enough.
When I look around, I see a lot of people that are struggling to find meaning, to find purpose, to find a fulfilled life. What do you think it is that gets in most people's way on their pursuit of lasting happiness?
Well, it's interesting that we so rarely ask the question, what makes life worth living? Right? I mean, it's like we're all living out our default answer to that question. I mean, we are just by implication doing what we think we should be doing to make life worth living, right? We're not trying to have bad lives, but most of us are just doing one thing after the next. I mean, we're responding to things that happen in our lives. We're following each desire as it arises. We're avoiding pain insofar as we can. But if you ask the question, what makes life worth living, and you don't have a clear answer to it, your efforts to live a good life will be fairly haphazard, right? I mean, it's just if on any given day or any given hour, it would seem that checking one's email and bouncing around social media is one's answer to that question. And if you take a moment to think about it, it's clearly not, right? So what is the answer? And I don't think it's, on one level, there are obviously many answers to it. I mean, you might say, love is the most important thing, or being with people you love, or doing meaningful and creative work, or understanding the way the world works. Have the pleasure of scientific insight, and I mean, all of these are partial answers to the question. And I think I would say all of those things are important. Being ethically engaged with the world. I mean, actually helping people, doing good things in the world, right, as opposed to bad things. But there's something that connects all of those answers, and it really is the quality of one's attention. It's a capacity to actually connect with one's life in the present. I mean, that is the necessary piece. I mean, just take love. Let's say love is your answer, right? So what does that mean? You presumably you're surrounded by people who you love and who love you, but what is that experience actually like? We all know what it's like to be multitasking in the midst of that experience, right? To be checking one's phone while your child is trying to tell you a story, or where our attention is not actually located in this circumstance of love that ostensibly is the most important thing in our lives, or so we tell ourselves when asked a question like this. So it really is the quality of one's presence. I mean, can you bring real mental presence to each moment in life? That's what makes life matter, really. I mean, that's what gets you to the end of the day without regret, and that's what, presumably, if you link enough days like that together, that's what will get you to the end of your life without regret, right? Where you're not looking back and saying to yourself, well, I really cared about the wrong things. I paid attention to the wrong things moment by moment. And so that quality of attention, real attention to the present moment, non-distraction in the present moment, that is what meditation is, right? Meditation is simply the method of training that deliberately, such that becomes more and more one's default way of being, whatever one's doing and whoever one is with. And so, as you know, I've spent a lot of time, of late in particular, focused on teaching meditation, and my meditation app, Waking Up, is where I do that. But we're misled in thinking that meditation is primarily a practice. It obviously gets presented as a practice, and people adopt it as a practice. It's if you've never meditated before, then you start. Well, it feels like you've started doing something. You've added something to your life. But in truth, meditation is not something. It is doing less of something, right? Once you learn to meditate, you notice that it is simply not being distracted by the flow of thought. That is what meditation is. It's the ability to notice what in fact you notice, what your attention lands on clearly, without being lost in thought, distracted from it, or without merely telling yourself a story about your experience based on concepts, right? So there's like a non-conceptual layer beneath the layer of concepts that we can connect with, and it just so happens that is what is truly rewarding in any present moment. So if you're having a peak experience, or you're in some kind of flow state, right? So you're having an athletic experience, or a creative experience, or a sexual experience, or whatever the experience is that has caused you to completely forget about the past and the future because you're getting such immersive satisfaction in the present. All of those experiences have something in common. You have let go of your distraction around past and future, right? You're not thinking without knowing that you're thinking. You're actually unified with whatever that experience is in the present. And the truth is, it's the unification that is the main source of mental pleasure there. It's not the fact that you happen to be skiing, right? Skiing is great, but when skiing is really great, it is the unification with the motor experience that is really so satisfying. And so it is with so many other things. So anyway, there's a long answer to your question, but really, attention is the answer to the question.
It seems like there's more and more things that are competing with our attention these days. Although, it seems like we always speak in hyperbole, like we've never been more distracted, or we've never had more things to preoccupy us from what's truly important. But obviously, these are ideas that philosophers and people have been talking about for thousands of years, this inability to focus on the present moment. Do you think there is something unique about smartphones, social media, and the way in which we get absorbed into these technology and pulled out of the present moment? As you know, anxiety, depression, these things are on the rise. Is this because of the technology? Is it more difficult now to find that peace and quiet? And how do we come to terms with it? How do we actually mindfully use technology without it letting us ruin our lives?
Yeah, well, all of this technology is obviously a double-edged sword, right? So there are good things about the internet and smartphones. Obviously, I wouldn't want to get rid of all of this, but it has made the problem of overcoming distraction harder for most people. I think there's no question about that. Our attention is diverted more and more because there really is an arms race for our attention. Right? It's no exaggeration to say that the most highly resourced, powerful companies on Earth right now are spending all of their time, literally they have thousands of engineers spending, all of their time trying to figure out how to successfully game our attention, right? That is the business model. If you're Google or YouTube, which is Google, or Facebook, or any of these companies, and the levers they have to pull are are powerful, and they are working to certainly the disadvantage of our mental well-being, because the levers they're pulling are outrage and prurience and just mere superficial desires, right? Oh my God, how does Kim Kardashian look now, right? Or you won't believe what this movie star that you used to like looks like in her old age. But whatever it is, we get bombarded with these ads everywhere. And other products of these algorithms, which are meant to be captivating, but not ultimately rewarding, right? I mean, this is like if you just keep clicking, you are guaranteed to wind up somewhere that's not rewarding in the end, right? Like you won't be able to account for the last 2 hours of your life, and you've just watched, one. Lurid video after the next, and increasingly lurid, right? I mean, so the algorithm just keeps sending you, I mean, if you're talking about like the YouTube algorithm, it tends to just send you more of the same, but a little bit more extreme of the same, right?
Well,
So
yeah, sorry to cut you off. Also, I think the flip side of that, which a lot of people don't talk about and wasn't quite covered in The Social Dilemma, is the opposite side of it, how YouTube uses those levers to manipulate the creators and the creatives, whether independent media or large media, to buy into those algorithms. So we see when we log in on the dashboard how my last video compared to my last 10 videos. And if it's the 10th, then you get that gut-wrenching feeling. There's all these red arrows pointing down saying that you're screwing it up, and then like all of your money's gonna go down and you're not gonna be able to do this forever. And so it, in so many ways, is like this cycle that kind of feeds itself, where if you're not getting that attention, you feel like you need to succumb to the algorithm to be able to get it.
Yeah, so it's basically turned culture into a clickbait factory, right? And so that's in many ways not good for culture. It's not good for politics. It's not good for social cohesion. I mean, that people get siloed into these echo chambers that are sort of mutually canceling and have no points of contact with other echo chambers. So it's isolating, it's deranging, it's caused us to lose faith for obvious reasons in our institutions like the media. I mean, because the media is participating in this. I mean, even our most respected journalists are feeling the same pressure you just described, because their business model is clicks in the end. So there's so many ways in which this is not good, but in particular, it's not good for each of us to continually have our lives fragmented by, notifications or just the self-notification that it's been 10 minutes since you've checked your email or since you've checked Twitter, and you want to do that now, right? You actually want to interrupt yourself, right? And you tend to live with this illusion that you can successfully multitask, right? We know we can't successfully multitask, but if you're on the phone with someone and if the conversation isn't demanding 100% of your attention, it's very tempting to check Slack or check Twitter or check. I mean, it's just, this is what has happened to our brains. We've changed our brains based on how we've used them in the last decade. And if you care about the quality of your life, and you care about the quality of your relationships, and you care about having something more than a superficial level of insight into, both the workings of your own mind and just the way the world works. I mean, if you actually want to be a contributor to an interesting conversation and an honest one, all you really have is the currency of your attention, right? That's all you can muster in any moment. I mean, it's the quality of what you can notice, how often you can notice it, and how satisfying that engagement with the present moment is. And again, that in the end, that is a synonym for what meditation is. In fact, it's just not. It's not a specific practice you are adding to the default settings of your mind. It's actually recovering a deeper, more interesting default setting, and then it's from that place that you can do any other thing, right? Because once you know how to meditate, then it is. And this is sort of a paradox. I mean, people wonder, whether they can, get the same benefits by working out, or hiking or running or, playing a musical instrument or listening to music, whatever it is they like to do and it makes them feel good. And the answer is no, right? I mean, like you're not going to learn to meditate by jogging more or by playing the violin, or like that's just not how anyone learns this skill. But once you learn the skill, you can do all of those things and they can become synonymous with meditation, right? Because again, meditation isn't some extra thing that you do and then you stop doing and then you pick up the violin and then you're playing the violin. No, you can actually play the violin from a place of clear awareness and non-distraction. But that, the difference between distraction and non-distraction is something that really you only figure out by learning to meditate.
Yeah, and I think in so many ways, I could say that even my work in a way is meditation. I certainly have those peak experiences where 8 hours go by and I'm wrapped in the present moment. I'm in a flow state, but you do that over and over and over again. And then eventually you take the work away and what's left is anxiety because you're not doing something, you're not moving, you're not feeling productive or moving towards a specific goal. And I think that's one of those examples of where meditation is obviously a much better way to find that kind of clarity in the present moment. It sounds like meditation is the effective way to be able to combat some of these negative influences on our lives, the lack of attention that we give to the meaningful things, and it perhaps gives us clarity. How would you go about building a meditation practice? I know for me personally, I made a course on habit change. Like I know a lot about how to build effective habits, and I also know that it's very difficult to do, and it's also very flimsy, especially in 2020 during the pandemic. I think it's challenged so many of our habits, and to figure out new ways to, stay healthy, to stay active, and all of that. And so when it comes to building meditation practice, though, that's always been a difficult thing for me to do because it's like flossing, where it's not important until there's a problem, or at least it doesn't feel important until there's a problem. And so how do we meditate before we really need to? How do we make a daily practice of it?
Yeah. Well, luckily there will always be a problem, right? I mean, so unlike flossing where you find out, 20 years from now that you really should have been flossing, meditation is something that can be advertised to you hourly if you become sensitive to the mechanics of your own mental suffering, right? Because if you just wait around long enough, you're going to feel crappy about something, right? You're going to be telling yourself a story that is going to be producing, self-doubt or anxiety or regret. Somebody will say something that annoys you. I mean, if you just imagine your life as a video game, right? And at this level, you're guaranteed to encounter something over the course of the next few hours that bumps you, right? And the question is, how long do you want to stay destabilized by those moments? I mean, so if the next time you become angry, do you want to stay angry just as a mere hostage of that mental state for as long as that lasts based on just the dynamics of your own conditioning? Or do you actually want the ability to decide to step off that ride, when it no longer seems useful to be angry? And I'm not saying it's never useful to be angry. I mean, I think negative emotions are indications that there's something in the environment or something in our lives that needs paying attention to, right? That these are signals of salience, right? But it's almost never the case that anger or fear or anxiety or any of these other classically negative emotions is the best place from which to engage whatever challenge has just arisen. So if someone says something that makes you angry, right? Or if somebody, somebody startles you, right? You're on the sidewalk, or you turn around, suddenly somebody's in your face, right? What is the situation? Like it's worth having this moment of adrenaline because somebody could be attacking you, or something that you could be in the presence of a dangerous lunatic. Like this deserves your attention, right? But once you're in a situation and responding to it, how long do you want to feel adrenalized for, or neurotic for, or painfully awkward for, or whatever the thing is that has destabilized you into some classically negative state of affect. And I think most, if we're honest with ourselves, most of us want to recover very, very quickly. The pleasures of being an angry asshole are overrated, right? The pleasures of being the person who's taking up a lot of space with their neurosis. The actions of the current occupant of the Oval Office notwithstanding, they're overrated. It's like we want to actually be calm and compassionate and balanced and non-prickly, in our relations with other people and with ourselves, and with respect to our concerns about the future. Say, so if you step away from work and you're now beginning to feel the urgency of not getting enough done, right? You're telling yourself a story of some place in you, some part of your system is keeping score, right? And it's been long enough that you've done something productive, and now you're getting anxious that you're not doing enough. That experience is almost always coinciding with, first of all, that anxiety, again, it's a signal of salience, right? So it's like, is there actually something you need to do right now? This is a choice point. You can decide to keep watching Netflix, or you can decide to go do some work. So maybe there's a decision to make, but if you're going to keep watching Netflix, you might as well be able to enjoy it, right? It's like the anxiety is serving no purpose unless you use it as a signal to just do something different, right? So it is with future events. It's like, we feel anxious about something that's coming in the future, and the anxiety almost never serves any purpose, and it serves only the purpose to make us miserable until that thing happens, and then the thing happens, and it's either just as bad as we thought, or not nearly as bad as we thought, or different than we thought. And the precursor of suffering simply conspired to make us suffer twice. Even if the thing in the end was unpleasant, right? So. The Dalai Lama has a formulation about this, which is just, this thing you're worried about. Either you can do something about it or you can't. If you can do something about it, well, do something about it, and therefore you don't have to worry. If you can't do something about it, well, the worry is extra. You're going to have to suffer this thing, whatever it is, a medical procedure or whatever it is in the future. All of the antecedent anxiety is just extra pain, right? And yet you can't do anything with that advice unless you understand something about the mechanics by which anxiety arises, and what it means to be mindful of thoughts and emotions and to be able to kind of break that spell. If you don't know how to meditate, you're simply someone who is analogous to someone who's asleep and dreaming. You fall asleep, you're dreaming, you don't know it's a dream. The dream's going to be as bad or as good as it'll be, and you are a mere captive of that experience until you wake up, and you can't decide to wake up, right? And so meditation essentially gives you the ability to decide to wake up from the bad dream that you're having in thought space, while ostensibly awake.
Well, Sam, after having listened to your podcast for so long and also listening to the Waking Up app for so long, really exciting to be able to have this opportunity to talk. We've got more documentaries planned in the future, so would obviously love to bring you back on for one of those. And hopefully once this whole COVID thing comes down, maybe we can do an in-person interview.
Yeah, I'll see you on the other side of a vaccine. You get back from Australia and get the vaccine, and then we're there. Yeah.
Oh, it's exciting. It sounds like it's right around the corner, so fingers crossed everything works out.
So yeah, well, thank you, Matt. Pleasure to do this with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much to Sam Harris for taking the time to do this interview. It was fun to have an interview for the first time in about 8 months or so. If you want to get started with meditation, I highly recommend you check out Sam Harris's app, Waking Up. I've been using it for over a year now, and I absolutely love it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.